Hello, everybody. My name is Nyla Mason, and I am a senior psychology major. My UHP thesis investigated sex differences in 11 different social brain regions in autism spectrum disorder, looking at resting state fMRI data. And just to explain a little bit what that means, fMRI stands for functional magnetic resonance imaging, which is a type of brain scan that looks at blood oxygenation in the brain and follows the assumption that increased blood oxygenation would mean increased connectivity in the corresponding brain regions. And the resting state part means that we're taking this information when participants are sitting in the scanner, not asked to perform any particular task, as opposed to task-based fMRI, where they are given an explicit task and then the brain imaging is conducted while they are doing that task. So for my study, we are looking at sex differences primarily because there is a very large discrepancy in ASD research between males and females. And this could partially be because there are simply more males with ASD, but because of the size of this discrepancy being somewhere around 3 to 1 males to females diagnosed, we do believe that there might be an issue with diagnostic criteria as well that could be contributing to this discrepancy. So there's a theory out there called the female protective effect, or FPE, and this is really a broad umbrella term encompassing all the different factors that females have that could be responsible for this discrepancy in diagnosis. So a lot of different studies will look at genetic factors, some look at environmental factors. And for the purposes of this study, we're interested in the mostly environmental factor of masking, and that is the tendency for females to mask their autistic characteristics more effectively than their male counterparts do. And this is driven by the hypothesis that females are more driven by social interaction and social reward than males are in general, which has been found by prior research. So our main objective is to understand the neurobiological basis of the female protective effect by investigating subdivisions of the ACC, that's the anterior cingulate cortex, and other brain regions related to social cognition. So we hypothesized that females with ASD would show more functional connectivity than both TD females and males with ASD due to this increased masking ability or social camouflage. So those are the two comparison groups we looked at, males versus females with ASD, and typically developing females versus females with ASD. For our methods, we matched 33 males and 33 females with ASD, as well as 33 typically developing males and 33 typically developing females from the ABIDE-1, which is a large data set that pools fMRI data and demographic information from various sites across the country and even internationally now. So with this, with these selected participants, we examined the functional connectivity of the resting state fMRI with 11 selected regions of interest that I selected based on prior research, both inside and outside of the field of autism, but all found in some way to relate to social cognition. And the results were actually very interesting. If we look to this box on the left here, this is the comparison group showing connectivity where females with ASD had greater connectivity than males with ASD. And we never found the opposite pattern, in at least the region that we selected. It was never the case that males with ASD had more connectivity than females with ASD. And so you can see these particular areas that we found this increased connectivity in, but the most interesting thing here is the general pattern. If you look to our conclusion and discussion section, you can see a little bit more analysis of the specific regions if you're interested. And looking to the other two boxes, we are now seeing the comparison group females with ASD compared to typically developing females. So this vertical box here is showing all of the regions where females with ASD had greater connectivity than typically developing females. And the box on the bottom is showing the opposite pattern. So seeing this mix of hyper and hypoconnectivity is really interesting because it shows us that there might be aspects of the ASD diagnosis that are still accurate when it comes to looking at females as well as males. For example, all of the connections where TD females had greater connectivity than females with ASD were connections to the precentral gyrus, which relates to motor skills in certain ways. So the diagnostic criteria of ASD, that is repetitive movement and restrictive behavior, would still apply to females according to this data. However, when we look at this vertical box up here and see all the regions where females with ASD have more connectivity into developing females, it's a little bit more complex, and we can't draw any one-to-one conclusions from this, but going off of my hypothesis about masking, I think that this could potentially be evidence for females with ASD having a kind of compensatory effect in the brain, where they're having increased connectivity between these social brain regions and regions related to motivation and attentional networks, for example, because they do have this increased value of social interaction. So in a sense, they're working harder to achieve the same phenotype as their male counterparts. So this is important because if this is true, it would be useful to have clinicians know the difference between males and females with ASD, so that when they are diagnosing a female who potentially has ASD, they don't cross ASD off the list immediately just because she is presenting well socially, knowing that there might be increased motivation to social camouflage or mask, which could be why she is displaying a different phenotype. So that's all the time I have for this presentation. I wish I had more, but if you have any questions, feel free to email me. My email is listed here at the bottom. I'd also like to give credit and appreciation to Nick Luckenbach and Dr. Long Chen, who were both extraordinary help to me in the putting together of this project. Yes, thank you for your time. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day.